This is a review of the HobbyMate X130 kit. In this kit, basically this is what you have. You have 4 ESC, and these are BHELI S ESC rated for 2 to 4 S. And these things are very tiny. They're freaking, first impression, they look pretty good. As a comparison, this is very popular maybe a couple months ago or a couple years ago, a Little Bees 20 amp ESC, and I thought these were tiny, but you can see, it's a lot smaller than this. And a plus thing about it is that they don't have wires on them, so that you can, cut the length that you want depending on the motor and depending on your location that you're gonna mount. So it makes it a lot easier. Most of my builds anyway, I just cut the heat shrink back and desolder, so it's a plus here, not wasting that extra minute. The motors are 1306, rated for 3100 kV. It is 2 to 4S, so I'm really looking forward to trying 4S on this build. The motors is okay. What I do see, not really an issue, but I wish the cable would be a little bit thicker. It's very thin compared to others that I have. These, just as comparison here, I have a Racer 1306 4000 kV, and you can see the thickness of the gauge and the strand. This is even though it's a cheap or budget motor, it's a high quality or a little bit better gauge for this. And also, as a comparison, this is the 1707 Bravo Hobbies. You can see that the thickness of this cable is about the same as the Racer Star. Just wish that this HobbyMate motor had a little bit more, a little sturdier wire, but we'll see. It came with a yellow XT60 connector. Just because I had one laying around, I'll be using a all black one instead of a yellow one. But they're basically the same. There's no difference. Came with 4 sets of propeller. These are probably 3030 by 3. These very similar to the Racercraft that I've been flying with my X100. And you do have 8 of them, so that's awesome. If you break one, you do have a spare, which you do often. Comes with some battery straps, 2 of them, so you need some standoffs and spacers. This does have a pod, so this is the kit is designed for an FPV. It looks like it will accept a HS 1177. I don't know if I'm gonna go with the 1177 or just an all-in-one. The difference is the all-in-one is a lot. I would say it saves a lot of space and also the weight. Most of my builds so far, if it's below 100 millimeter or around 100 millimeter, I usually stick it all in one there, just so that I get the most flight and lose some weight on it. These 4 motors, they are directional, where they're not directions on the motor itself, but you can see by these caps, they are directional if you want to continue using these clockwise, 2 clockwise, and 2 counterclockwise. And it comes with a whole bunch of motor screws. They're M2 6x7 to M2's 5 millimeter. Okay, and next I will go ahead and usually with my builds, I want to take a look, what the parts came with, and just get like a visual of how I want to, everything I laid out. Looking at this frame, it's very sturdy. It's a 3 millimeter frame, so it looks very solid. Carbon fiber looks very good. The edges, it is a little sharp, you might want to sand that, especially where your battery strap is gonna go, because at a hard crash, it easily just rip the battery out of that. Other than that, it seems to be in very good made. No, the machines on the holes and the spacing in the middle are very nice, and they're not like jagged or anything like that. If you look at the way this motor mount is, it has a little groove here, and I believe that's it's meant so that you can. There's two ways you can mount the motor. One is just a conventional way, which is going like that, and two is if you want it. If your EC is a little long and you can't go between these two spaces, what you can do is you can wrap around the wire this way, and your EC will mount on the bottom. For this build, because of the DSCs are so tiny, I'm just gonna go ahead and directly mount it basically most of the time the normal way that other people mount theirs. Okay, and for this particular build, it looks like, it seems, I don't know how to word this, but I do want to add a little touch to this design or this frame. I want to add some RGB lights to this. I just don't know where I want to put it. Either on the bottom here, or maybe I had the idea of running around here like more like a ring RGB that's controlled by the flight controller. Speaking of flight controller, this kit does not come with one. You're gonna have to source that yourself. On this particular build, I'm using a Flip 32 F4 build. I mean, flight controller that I had laying around, and because it's individual and not like a 4-in-1 ESC, you might want to use some kind of a PDB, be it a PDB with a flight controller in there. Most of them are. Mine case, it didn't have a PDB with that F4, so I have this laying around, just a simple PDB, or something a little bit more complicated with a 5-volt regulator and a 12-volt regulator for your flight controller, your accessories, and your FPV equipment. So I'm not sure what I want to go with just yet. I'll like I said, I'll lay this out and think it for a while, and then I could just mock it up and take a look and see how I want to go. I want to keep it as light as possible. Again, to maximize the flight, and not too heavy. I'm hoping to, with a 4S, to go hit below 250. Although 250 is not a concern anymore since the new ruling, the FAA. But that's a whole different area subject. All right. Okay, so for this build, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this little ring on the outside. My intention is to put some RGB LEDs on the back, sides, and the front. That's what I wanted to do. I'm not sure how it works or not, but I did mock this up. Here's what the parts that is needed. For my case, PDB, 5 and 12 volts. That's up to you. What kind of PDB you want to use. It doesn't really matter. Flight controller, and the parts that I'm using from the kit is 4 of these little screws, which I don't really know how many millimeter they are. The spacers that's included with it, standoff, and the longer one on the sides for the spacers. And then the additional part that's not on the kit, if you want to go with this route, is I am actually raising it a little bit here so I can put this ring on for the LED. You will need 4. These are about 20 millimeter screws. 4, and then these are just washer locks, and they're basically for so that I can give it space when mounting the ESC so that the wire will run to the PDB without getting singed. And then also just some kind of spacers for the top. When we get close to it, I can show you exactly what it means, what it looks like. So to start, you would need these 20mm screws that I mentioned earlier. And we'll get in the picture here, right? And what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and put it through, and then use like the nut that came with the kit, and just tie it down. And then what you want to do is at this point you also want to run your battery cable. I'm sorry, battery strap, because the PDB is going to be on top of it, and you know, depending, this spacers is enough so that it can move freely if you need to adjust. So okay, so as you can see here, I put the green battery strap that included with it. One more thing I didn't really mention was that, as you can see, the edges are painted green. I guess because they gave me a green battery strap, I wanted to go everything green. So the edges are just paint either with green paint or it's like a green marker. Okay, so at this point, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and place your PDB. Whatever directions, it's really up to you. In my case, I will have the LED switch on this particular board facing the back. So okay, once the PDB is on, you would want to have the spacers on. These are, these are about maybe 3mm spacers, but it's not important to have the exact size. You just want a little bit of spacers so that the LED ring, or whatever you call this, and I will have the links to where you can just download and print this up on your 3D printer. Okay, and this is what it looks like after you install it. The screws, the 20mm screws, will have a little bit sticking out so that you can mount this spacers so that the light controller can mount on there. Okay, so at this point, what you want to do is you're going to go ahead and mount the motors. So for this case, I am mounting in just like so. One hint, or I guess one suggestion is, you see where the ESC and the motors are? Do not cut this close. I made a rookie mistake on like an earlier build, my 100, that I cut the wires really short. And the only problem with that is it's really hard to do any kind of repair because there's no slack in the cable anymore for the motor. So what I'm going to do over this case is I'm going to just go ahead and place the motor like this, and then just wrap it like so, and then heat shrink that extra part. So in case something happens or motor rip, whatever, I do have a little bit of the cable left, so that I don't need to resolder it back or whatever. Okay, so I forgot to mention that you do need also double-sided tape. I'm just gonna go ahead and put underneath here, and then I'm gonna double-sided tape on here for now. I will probably tie it down more afterwards when we finish with maybe 1 or 2 zip tie per ESC. Especially where these connectors are on these motors, the wire is very thin. You want to protect it either with electrical tape or liquid electrical tape, heat shrink shields, or something, just so that you will do a little bit better during like a crash. Okay, so the ESCs are double-sided tape to the arms. Nothing special here. Like I said, just go ahead and double side tape these down so that you can get the motor in, and you kind of want to cut and solder these. The great thing, you know, I love these ESC just by the look of it. One, they're tiny, and two is there's no wires here, so it's very easy to solder up these three directly to the motor, which is awesome in my opinion. Takes a lot of work out cutting the heat shrink off. Okay, next I'll go ahead and install one of the motors so you can take a look and see how it looks. Okay, so I just have a mock-up of the motor. As you can see it right, even though this ESC is pretty small, it fits very snugly. You barely have enough wire right here, so you probably could go push this ESC back a little bit, just cut the heat shrink tubing out and just push this back. There's you know, quite a bit of room left, but this should work no problem. The screw that I'm using on the motor are the shorter of the one in the package. So you have the M2s by 5 millimeter, and I believe the other one is 6.7. The 6.7 on this particular frame, 3 millimeter I think, is too long. So you want to use the 5 by 5 one. Okay, and these are Phillip heads, and they're pretty big on the bottom, so you don't have to worry about, you know, putting this all the way through the chassis, the frame here. So one thing I want to mention is the motors are directional, meaning the threads are directional. So if you're installing on like a Betaflight or a Clean Flight, make sure your rotation is correct. So for this one being the first motor, will be counterclockwise, and then clockwise. I'm sorry, this will be number 1, this will be number 2, this will be number 3, and number 4. Make sure that you are using the right one. So for this case, it will be the silver cap, and the other one is the black cap. The black cap should be on this side. Okay, and since these are BL helis, you don't need to worry about the you know, which one of these goes in each pad. You just solder it up straight up, and you can change that in the software later. Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys can see this or not, but I cut about, let's say, so I left about 30, like around 30 millimeter of the length of the cable, so that again, you know, just in case something happens, you do have that extra wire. What I'm going to do is just fold it on here, and at this point you can you know, electrical tape that or zip tie that down. One suggestion is it's probably easier if you wire it up and then mount the motor. So when you mount the motor, it's very tiny, and the space is very small, so you might have an issues if you don't have like a magnifying glass or something like that, just so that you can check, and you don't want to short any of those 2 motor leads out. Okay, all the motors are wired. Let's see if we can get close up of this. Okay, next we'll be cutting the power leads from the ESC to the PDB. It's a little messy right here and now, but we'll cut it up and we'll straighten all this stuff out. Okay, so here we go with the positive and the negative terminals soldered onto the PDB. All I have left is just the signal cable that should go to the flight controller. It's not the cleanest. It's probably because this PDB has, you know, 1 rail here for negative and 1 rail here for positive. The other PDB, where it has plus and minus each side, it's a little bit better, but the other PDB does not have a built-in voltage regulator, so I opted to use this one. So okay, continue on with the build process. Here is with the blue 3D printed part on. As you can see, the screw has just poking through out of it, and just enough so that I can put the standoff on there and the flight controller will sit right on top of it so that you can have access to the USB to flash it right here. Okay, so I have all the wires coming out. The white ones are the signal. The two very small ones are the 5-volt for the camera. And the two power leads, this will feed directly into the flight controller, right into the VBAT. So second time is the charm. The way I had it before, the motors were off. So I like to run mine, use the perpendicular to the strap, which means that if this is the connector, this would be the back. So motor 1 will be, let's see if you guys can see this. Motor 1 will be here, and then motor 2, 3, and 4. So I just had a switch where it's like this. So resolder just to make sure everything's correct. Triple check the connection in the back of the flight controller, and we're good to go. And here is quick test and beta flight. 1, 2, 3, and 4. It all spin up, so that's awesome. Since I have the props off at this point, I'm going to go ahead and calibrate the ESC. And to do that, all you have to do is just load up Be Heli Suite and just follow the directions to calibrate it. It's pretty simple. Okay, so I have the flight controller set up along with the ring on the outside. As you can see right now, I've added 4 RGB and RGB WS 2011, and this is what I purchased originally. They come in, I don't know, strips of a couple meters, and every 2 lights or so you can cut, no, every individual light you can cut. So for the spacing on this one, it looked like it works best when there's 2 of them. So I need to know which one is the starting LED and which one is the edge, so that I can wire it up. And if this is the front, I'm probably gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's gonna loop this way, and the power is for this LED strip is a 5-volt. I'm gonna take that off the PDB, and then the light itself, or the signal light itself, the D0 or the DN, it's gonna come straight from the flight controller, hopefully. Alright. Okay, this is what the LEDs hooked up. I don't know if you can see this, but let me go right here. Okay, do you see those 3 bridge wire? Basically, I'm just bridging them, connecting from one to the next. If you have an LED that kind of spans the whole the whole ring, you wouldn't need to do this. You just glue them on all together. Okay, and this is what it looks like when it's powered up. Right now I have it set to green. So you see it? And it's pretty freaking bright. These LEDs are. Okay, and then on to the next. For my build anyway, using F4. So the two pins you see here, plus and minus, you can see it, but those were 5 volts, and the D1 is pretty much right here to pin 5 of the flight controller. The F4 does have an LED signal. However, that doesn't work in my case. I updated the firmware, and it seems like it's only gonna work if it's on pin 5. Might be totally different with yours, but you only really need one cable, which is the signal for it. All right. Okay, so I have the receiver set up, just double-sided tape, and I'm using S-Bus with telemetry. The telemetry is the one with the blue cable. You can see this. Okay, next I'm gonna go ahead and put in the pod, and we'll finish this up. Okay, so I decided to go with these all-in-one camera, the micro camera. I wanted to save as much weight as I can. I was thinking about putting HS 1177 on there, but I want to save that for like a bigger build. So for this one, I'm gonna see if I can try to squeeze this inside the pod. Shouldn't be a problem. I would like to change the antenna to like a circular antenna or a pagoda antenna, but well, hopefully it works really well. This, by the way, this is a all-in-one camera from AKK, and their website's on Amazon, so you can take a look. But hopefully the quality on here is pretty good. Okay, and here it is, pretty much 90% finished. I put the pods in for now. I'm just going to do line of sight just to make sure everything's okay. I do not have the camera, all-in-one camera in there just yet. The reason is it's so small that I need to find a way to securely mount the camera on there. So that will be next. I'll go ahead and test it with a couple of line of sight and see how it does on 3S and 4S, and that concludes this review. And I'll go ahead and do another quick review once I have the camera in place. Thanks, guys.